call this meeting of the San Angelo Development Corporation to order. It is 8:35, and I have asked Director Carrasco to open us in prayer this morning.
All right, if you'll please join me in prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. We ask that you continue to watch over us and our city. We thank you for the bountiful rains that you've recently provided us, but we ask for more to come to help with our drought. We ask that you watch over us during this meeting, watch over us in our daily lives and in our businesses. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium. Begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do I have any public comment this morning?
Good morning, Board. Dave Erickson, Director of the ASU Small Business Development Center. I just want to say thank you to COSA DC, Guy Andrews, and staff for their support of the Embezzlement Fraud Initiative. 119th District Attorney John Best asked us to put together an initiative to address the issue, which is kind of rampant in the nonprofit and for-profit world lately. And COSA DC has been very supportive of that effort, among other CPAs in the chamber as well. So I just want to say thank you for that. And we'll be doing a couple seminars coming up. And there's also some posters and flyers that are going up everywhere to address and create awareness and address the issue. So thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Due to timing of council and the COSA DC boards with the council meetings coming prior to that, we're looking at calling a special meeting of COSA DC on February 3rd, and I know there may be some conflicts. The rodeos are going on and other things like that, but wanted to get input at a later time to be thinking about that, what time of day we could have it. It's been suggested 6 o'clock in the morning for that meeting. So seriously, I'm being serious about that. I mean, it sounds funny, but see if others can meet that. We have 2 board members that's the time that could work out. So we could have it without, as long as we had a quorum, but want you to be thinking about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other public comment at this time? All right. We will move on to the consent agenda. A, consider approving the December 18, 2019 and December 30, 2019 meeting minutes. B, consider approving the necessary corporation disbursements. C, consider adoption of a motion authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute an annual agreement with the MC Electric for the BRC building not to exceed $5,000 annually with provision for renewals. Do I have a motion? Motion. Director Cummings, do I have a second? Director Lara. Any other comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Moving on to the regular agenda items. A, consider approving the December 2019 financial statements. Presentation made by Ms. Tina Diersky, Director of Finance.
Good morning, Board. Tina Diersky, Director of Finance. I'm going to present your first quarter financial statements for you this morning. Sales tax revenue is slightly over what we budgeted for the year. For December, it was down just slightly at 0.15%, but then we saw an uptick in January of an increase of 10.65% over the previous January. So overall, year to date, through the end of January, sales tax revenue is up 3.2% compared with the same 4 months in the last year.
3.2?
Yes, year to date, so for the first 4 months of the year. That's showing the numbers for sales tax, and then, of course, our graph that we show you. On your balance sheet for economic development, there's not a whole lot of activity here this month. I do want to point out that you have $6.5 million right now in your unassigned fund balance. We do closely watch that and monitor it with Coast DC staff and our finance staff as well. Every month, we meet with them to go over the financials and talk about what projects are coming up and what kind of what we need to reserve as far as cash flow goes. And so I know we have some big projects coming up, and so we're looking at, budgeting for those incentives that are due in the current year and not trying to tie up all of your cash flow with budgeting for the entire project at one time. So anyway, just want to let you know that that is on our radar, and we're watching that very closely as far as cash flow purposes. On your income statement for the economic development side, really not a lot of activity here this month. The bulk of the payments just went out for the city staff services agreement, as well as some other admin type payments that went out. And on your balance sheet for the ballot side, most of that money is reserved for debt service for long-term water supply, and so that's kind of what we're building up the fund balance there to do. We make debt service payments in February and August of each year. And then on your income statement for the ballot side, again, just some minimal activity for West Texas Water Partnership, and then some payments went out for the Affordable Housing Program. So if you have any questions on anything, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank
Up
you.
to good work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to B.
We need a motion on that.
Motion to approve the financials as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to line item B, a public hearing regarding the expenditure of up to $2.5 million in half-cent sales tax funds for the construction of infrastructure improvements to Phase 2.1 and 2.2 of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park. The total cost of the construction being $3,522,417 and including 5% contingency. Presentation made by Bob Schneeman. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. As the board knows, anytime that we intend to spend half-cent sales tax, we've got to have a public hearing on the project. Hearings required to provide, except as provided by subsection B, Type B corporation shall hold at least one public hearing before spending money to undertake a project. And so that's what we're doing today on this particular project. This is the project for Phase 2.1 and 2.2 improvements, infrastructure improvements to the industrial park. The green area is the remainder of Phase 2.1 that was not completed with the AEP project, and then Phase 2.2, shown in blue, is the continuation of the project. Phase 2.1, 2.2, the bid was $3,354,683. We've added a 5% contingency because there was not a contingency item in the bid for a total of $3,522,417. Of that, $1.25 million will be covered by an EDA grant, and that leaves about $2.27 million of half-cent sales tax. We've asked that we've advertised it at $2.5 million to give us a little bit of leeway in case there are change orders or anything in the contract. And this time I'll open it for questions.
Questions from the board? At this time, I would like to open the public hearing. It is 8:44. Do I have any discussion from the public? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Moving on to C, consider a request for $4,300 to support the recertification of Tom Green County as an ACT work-ready community.
As you're aware, we participate in the ACT program. We advertise San Angelo as an ACT work-ready community. And Just like the ACT test that's administered to college students, this is a test that's administered to people coming into the workforce to determine their qualifications and that sort of thing. So what has transpired, we're up for recertification, and because we had a participant that arbitrarily dropped from the program that was administering some of these tests, we're short by $4,300 that we would like to allocate back to this project. The community's already spent in getting this program started $800,000 over the last 2 years. The program continues to grow and become implemented. Ethicon is one of the largest users of this particular program. So what we'd like to do is to request that the board approve $4,300 for continuation of this program. Glad to answer your question. What?
Ethicon is the largest, yes?
Right, they're the largest user of this particular program right now, but it's utilized in schools all throughout the Tom Green County and around the area by some of our other employers as well.
Questions, concerns?
Are we actively looking to add more, I guess, employers to use this program?
Yes, absolutely, and as they grow out, and we're in one of the Schleicher County, we're ready to certify them as well, and some of the others in the program. So, yes, this will continue to grow
How often do you have to recertify?
every 2 years. So the certification would last us for 2 years, and then we need to recertify again.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Guy. Moving on to D, presentation of the 2019 City of San Angelo Development Corporation Annual Report, presentation made by Guy Andrews.
This will be a quick recap. Have you passed out those reports to the board members? Okay, so each of you have a report, and this presentation basically will follow that format. I'll be as brief as possible since you've been involved in the program, but I did want to recap the year as we're required to do. So, of course, you know that the strategic initiative is all about planes and trains and automobiles. In regard to the planes side of it, we completed during the year a land use management study for the airport business and industrial park. This is the concept plan that came out of it. Just kind of shows you an overview of what we might be able to do with that park. We also have participated in the San Angelo Regional Airport Master Plan, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation about what's been accomplished with that plan so far. One of the things that we've undertaken in conjunction with our lake maintenance operations is to clear 14 acres across from the airport on Knickerbocker. We still have some efforts to go on that. There are 58 piles of brush that we need to remove from the site. Lake maintenance is going to continue to do some stump grinding to get some stumps down as well. We need to replace about 4,000 feet of fence. So far we haven't expended any funds in regard to this project, but we'll be coming back in regard to the clearing of those brush piles and the fence for funds for this project. This is actually on the Bureau of Reclamation's property out there. They've granted us permission to do this, and as the mayor said in council yesterday, we're even with the piles of brush, they're already getting good comments about how this area has become a lot more attractive. There's a picture of just one picture of kind of what it looks like right out as you exit the airport right now. In regard to trains, we bought the 183.5 acres that's just north of the Texas Pacifico rail yard. But in addition to that, there have been a lot of studies in regard to, since we're on the South Orient Rail Line, the rail bridge at Presidio had burned 11 years ago. That bridge has now been put back in place, which opens up a new freight corridor. on the South Orient Railroad, so it's Topolobampo, Mexico, and then that line runs up in San Angelo is the largest community on that line. We'll have more to say about that. More information will be coming. One of the first things we need to do is line up a consultant to help us through this project. So the thrust of it is we want to create the San Angelo Railport for local customers to be able to ship commodities and receive commodities by rail to help save money. The other side is we need to take advantage of the financial opportunities that will result from the port opening back up and that line becoming a major rail corridor among 6 on the Texas border. Regard to automobiles, of course, we've been heavily involved in the Ports to Plains project. These are maps on the left of the entire corridor that goes all the way from Mexico all the way up to Canada. We're working hard and actually have a segment 2 of the Ports to Plains initiative. If you recall that the legislation passed House Bill 1079 that causes TxDOT to do a feasibility study, and so they've broken it up into segments for the study. Our next segment meeting here is on February 5th. The chairman of our segment is Mayor Gunter. Michael Looney and I are also included on the steering committee for that project and providing input about economic analysis in regard to that project. We've also talked about the I-14 project. There hasn't been just a lot of activity. I am on that steering committee as well as the county judge. Steve Floyd is on that committee. This is a federal project. It's called the Gulf Coast Strategic Highway, which would bring I-14 across. And eventually that would it really intersect with I-27 in San Angelo, so there's plenty of opportunity there as well. You'll recall we became members of the High Ground of Texas in this last year. Represents over 75 members in the West Texas region, and we actually held the annual conference for that here in San Angelo, so we're already seeing benefits of that. We also became part of the Texas Midwest Community Network, and by the way, I sat on board, and so does Michael Looney for TMCN. I'm on the board of High Ground of Texas. We also held their annual conference here in San Angelo. And that brought in about 250 people, so we got a good return. One of the big things that we had going was our comprehensive housing study, and that's produced some great results in a lot of areas. The main benefit, it helped match up the supply and demand in the housing industry. We're taking care of a lot of housing needs for Goodfellow Air Force Base, which was a big focus on this. So there are some projects that are going on now. So within the next 18 months, we should have pretty much taken care of Goodfellow and other people's housing needs in that. And then when Michael Looney gets up in a minute, he's going to talk a little bit about another housing project that's going to be a great benefit to us. We've also gotten a lot of demographic information out of these reports. The report is now called The Gift from Heaven. We're really a little reluctant to start that. It's not an intuitive thing, but it's more than paid for itself already. In our business retention and expansion program, we've had a great year in that. Just to highlight some of the ones that we've given out, Principal LED is bringing their manufacturing operations from China. Total grant that they're eligible for is $260,000. Carter Fentress Engineering is buying a new facility, and they qualified for $20,000. Jay's Wild Game Processing, that many of you are familiar with, is a $50,000 grant. SMC Global, $200,000 property tax rebate for that over a period of a number of years. West Texas Steel, $59,000 for that project. We provided $25,000 for Intertel. So you can see we've kind of covered a wide gamut of different businesses, all the way from very large on down to small businesses. Double Barrel Fabrication's another one, $70,000 eligibility on that one. And our Business Resource Center and Business Factory, we currently have 3 tenants in the Business Factory. Since inception, we've had 105 total companies. Right now, there are 18 full-time and 7 part-time employees in the incubator. In return on investment since inception, the total gross sales generated out there is about $1.5 million. Gross payroll about $1.4 million. This year we graduated Odom RD LLC, and then we've actually produced, as a result of this, 566 jobs within the community. In tax increment reinvestment zone, that's in partnership with our development services. Shannon Scott administers that, and she's this year we've had 11 total tiers agreements executed for a total projected capital investment of $2.7 million. 5 of those tiers agreements were in the north zone for $1.7 million. 6 of the tiers agreements are in the south zone for a capital investment of about $1 million. In the south zone, just to recap and show you some photos of that possibly. There we go. There should be a picture associated with that, but 6 East Concho, next door at 8 East Concho, been awarded tiers grants. Fuentes Cafe at 101 South Chadburn, the Old Central Firehouse Bed and Brew. Then there's a couple that are still in progress in the South Zone at the Buffalo Soldier Art Gallery, which is just down the street from the BRC. And if you've driven by there lately, that building's been completely gutted, but they received a tiers grant, and it's in progress. And then Dean and Linebarger at 305 West Tug. In the North Zone, we have all of those projects are in process. JKLS Properties at 1715 North Chadburn, the gentleman on North Bryant, Senior Chang's, Icon Cinema, and Dollar General also received tiers funding. In terms of capital improvements in our business and industrial park, and Bob just made that presentation, we do have over 700 acres. We're an AEP quality site, which means we're shovel ready in our business park, and we continue to grow in that. There are 16 acres currently under contract for $416,000 of revenue that will produce, and then 7 acres under option contract, another $175,000. So the industrial park is really beginning to take off. Once again, we have some tenants, but there's been a bit of a lull, but now there's high demand. As Bob just mentioned, we just did the bid opening, public meetings on Park Phase 2 and Industrial Park Phase 2.2 as well. In terms of the airport master plan, our consultant is Centurion Planning and Design, and what they've completed so far are the opportunities assessment. They've conducted stakeholder meetings, done market research, economic analysis, demand assessment, aviation-related industry research, and conceptual site plan. By the way, Jeremy Valgartson and I went to Chicago at the 19th of December, met with United Airlines. In regard to that, the message is stay in touch. You're on the list, but right now, the incumbent airline has a pretty strong hold in West Texas, so we'll continue to be in contact with them. In terms of our airport gateway improvement project, as I mentioned, we've partnered with Lake Maintenance, 14 acres, 58,000, or 58, no, I hope not, 58 piles of trees and brush need to be removed, and 4,000 linear feet of fencing. We're also involved with the Chadburn Streetscape project. We've committed $3.75 million, about $750,000 per year for 5 years. We're continuing to work in that project. Cressman Dining Facility at Goodfellow Air Force Base, we just had the ribbon cutting and plaque unveiling for that project. We have provided them, and a lot of this was before your time, a $1.5 million grant for extension of the Cressman Dining Facility. There's some photos of that facility. They've basically built out, and not only improvements in the size and the quality of the dining facilities, but there are also some conference rooms that are available for the public to meet as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Looney that's going to highlight just some of the things that we've done in our targeted marketing area. You're all aware that they are the contractor for our marketing and advertising. So,
Yeah, I've got one question real quick.
sorry.
At that meeting in Chicago,
Right.
we understand we can't get a second airline. Is there any discussion with the current airline provider we have as to a second route? Instead of just Dallas, something, yeah.
I'm not aware if there is any discussion with them, but I would imagine there is. There are also possibilities of discussions with other providers that would be like regional providers that might provide routes where you were flying from several routes a day to Houston is kind of the emphasis of where we like to see flights because of the connections there. It's actually easier. It seems counterintuitive, but it's actually easier to fly to Houston and make connections to the West Coast than it is to fly through Dallas to make those types of connections. So I know we continue to work on that and discuss with the airlines. It's just at this point in time, we're not in the position to do that.
If the ball's rolling with it and we can't go that way, maybe we can open the conversation with our current provider and say, hey, let's start a Houston route once or twice a day and see if, so, anyway. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hey, morning. Michael Looney, VP of Economic Development with the San Angelo Chamber. If we keep going at our current rate, it might be helpful to note that several of the companies, we touched 4 companies in 2019, and all of them have Houston connections, so maybe we can parlay a body of users. $216 million in economic yield was realized off the transactions that we touched and worked very deeply with in 2019. Highlights 4 major corporations, SMC Global, Allen's Transport out of Edmonton, Recurrent Energy, now Duke Energy. These are companies that, and there's another company that we'll be talking about in executive that we aren't going to talk about right now, but the numbers that we've seen coming through these companies has been really impressive, and we're really, really blessed to have the relationships we have with these companies. One of the main things I'd like to emphasize is that, for example, SMC Global, they're at 3 facilities. The 2801 Loop 306 facility is one that COSA DC got involved with. And what that did is kind of knowing sort of anecdotally, here's a little bit more about what those funds were for. That accelerated their expansion. They originally came to San Angelo looking for basically just a barn to store stuff in, and it's turned into 17 employees, 3 facilities, plus we're working on now a 4th facility. And yes. Oh, thank you. You said brief. I'm trying to be brief.
They might want to see photos.
Okay. I noticed they were all looking right at me. This is pretty neat. Yeah, some of the what I was going to say is that on SMC and some of the other companies, you've heard these names come up before, and one of the things that we ask these companies when we start talking to them is, are you really just an oil field services company, or what else do you do? And most of these companies do multiple different types of functions throughout different economic sectors. SMC, for example, they have many other chemical industrial sectors that they touch, and we're trying to help them exploit that. So it's not just Permian Basin focused. But to list out here some of the sustainable growth industries that we target are companies that we're trying not to be, the so-called flash in the pan. These are companies that are going to have a durable relationship, and we use companies like Ethicon, Time Clock Plus as good examples. So it may be one company with many different types of product lines that they service throughout the United States and the world. Pipeline, we're finding that there's there's a lot of pipelines that are going to be coming through this region. Pipeline servicing companies. Solar power generation, you've heard a little bit about that. We've got 5 different plants that we're working with. One is under construction on 2288. It's a $180 million plant, and it only provides 2 full-time jobs, but the tax yields and the yields to the independent school district at Water Valley are very substantial. And those are good projects for us to work on when you have a very low level of available employees. Oil field support manufacturing, that's still just a big part of what we do. Heavy haul logistics, over the road and rail. And that also touches the agricultural sector as well, which is a sector that we really reached into in a big way in 2019. It's kind of the unknown foundation of our economic platform here in the Concho Valley. And we've found that those discussions and the interfaces that we've had with those large industrial agricultural producers has really sparked a lot of the intelligence that we've gathered, that we've translated to COCDC regarding the rail port and the necessary rail service. And then, of course, chemicals manufacturing for the industry, manufacturing, and agriculture. There's a shot of SMC. Again, it's 17 full-time employees. They're adding about 2 new employees per month, and that's $5.7 million in economic impact, 130,000 square feet and growing. Allen's Transport, this is the company out of Edmonton. What we wanted to do is show you, this is when they say they're coming to San Angelo to set up a tank farm. That's a tank farm. We were impressed with that, and we asked the owner of the company if we could publish that, and he said, "You sure could." They're very proud of their work. So it's an indoor tank farm, and that's drag reducing agents for the pipeline industry. That's a shot of the construction of Recurrent Duke Energy's Rambler development, which is the 4,000 acre, 200 megawatt utility scale solar power plant built on 2288. Hardin Creek 27. This is the 250 unit cottage community that will be built to the west of Furniture Row on Loop 306. Groundbreaking is set for probably we talked to the developer yesterday a couple of times. It's probably going to be the next 3 weeks. And the signs are up on the property for their contractor that they've hired to build the property. The nice thing about this is going to be a reliever to the issues that we've had, not just with military personnel needing housing, but also with employees throughout the region. And then finally, just like COCDC is so deeply involved with the ACT program, we deliver to the community and to COCDC the Southwest Research Institute's Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center courses. We held 1 course last year. We had 41 applicants. We could only take 12. It's a week-long course. We have ratcheted that up with the help of Ethicon. One of their members of leadership is our deputy of training who works with the chamber. He's also a chamber board member. His name's Mike Berry. Absolutely outstanding individual. Very helpful to the effort to train and certify existing employee base in San Angelo, and we're going to host 4 courses in San Angelo. These are the same courses that are taught to the major manufacturers throughout the United States. And so they do get those certifications, and that helps them to move into higher levels within their companies for better pay. It could also be transfers within higher levels within the company, perhaps even in other cities. But that makes room for other people to advance up the chain as well. And then finally, it just wouldn't be a San Angelo economic effort without reaching out to the rodeo. The rodeo has really become very interested in our efforts, and we do sponsor the awards ceremony for the agricultural mechanical competition. And in 2021, we are going to be starting a scholarship program for youngsters from around the region that specialize in the construction of mechanical components, engineering projects. And that's all there is for the Chamber of Commerce report. Any questions?
Questions, concerns? All looks good.
All right,
Keep
very
up the
good.
good work.
We sure appreciate y'all's help.
Thank you. All right, moving on to line item E. Consider authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute a real estate sales agreement with Coverlay Manufacturing for sale of 4.0 acres plus or minus out of the Gateway Edition, City of San Angelo Business and Industrial Park, generally located at southwest quadrant of the intersection of Gateway Drive and Venture Drive. Presentation by Mr. Bob Schneeman.
Thank you. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This property is the corner marked site right here. It's 4 acres. Coverlay has made us an offer on that property of $29,000 per acre, which is our normal sales price for under 5 acres. It's approximately 4 acres, and that'll depend on the actual survey on the ground. Again, the price is $29,000 an acre for a total price of $116,000 plus or minus, depending on the actual surveyed acreage. 2 things to point out on this particular offer is that they have asked for a refund of any expenditures that they have for the survey and for any platting efforts that they do prior to closing in the event that we back out of the sale, which is, I mean, it's not something we're going to do. So we recommend that we just go ahead and include that in the contract.
Questions, concerns? Okay, do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Consider adoption of a resolution affirming the real estate sales contract for sale of 12 acres of the land surveyed out of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park to Allen's Transport USA, Inc. at a price of $25,000 per acre, authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute a right of first refusal and option agreement to Allen's Transport USA, Inc. for 7.23 plus or minus additional acres of land adjacent to said surveyed 12-acre parcel in a form approved by the city attorney and recommending approval by city council. Presentation by Bob Schneeman.
Thank you. The board may recall that you've previously approved the sale of this 12 acres. However, we thought we would mention it again because they're also asking for an option for an additional 7.25 acres. The sale price is $25,000 per acre for a total sale price of $300,000. Then if the option or request of right of first refusal is exercised, it would be an additional 7.23 acres. Again, the sale price would be $25,000 per acre, or if they're doing it on first right of refusal, they would have to match whatever the offer price is from a third party. They've given us a non-refundable deposit of $500 to exercise that option. So the total price would then be $181,250 plus or minus, depending on actual acreage surveyed, and also depending on whether it was under right of first refusal versus the straight acreage sale. So this is the 12 acres that we've been talking about, and then this is the option area of about 7.25 additional acres. To help you locate, this is Principal LED, and then AEP is here. Angelo Archives is here, and the 4 acres we were talking about previously is on that corner.
This land at one time was spoken for with that pipe company, is that right?
That's correct. A pipe coating company, I
Pipe
believe.
coating, yeah.
Right. We haven't heard from them. They've, Michael stays in touch with them. They're still planning on moving to San Angelo, but they don't have a time schedule yet. So we've decided to go, staff is recommending we go ahead and sell this property. We're about to open up at least 80 plus acres in phase 2 that we can have them look at that.
Okay. Do I have any concerns or questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? Second. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Schneeman.
Thank you.
At this time, we will move into closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code, Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Section 551.087, to deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the board is receiving from a business prospect with whom economic development negotiations are being conducted, and discuss financial or other incentives relating to the following projects. Project 2019 W322, Project 2020 W001. Section 551072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have the detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person regarding discuss shorter term leases for Business Resource Center. It is now 9:16 and we are in closed session. Thank you. Executive session. And we have no follow-up or administrative issues, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. It is now 10:04.